She was smeared on national TV, but when she struck back, it hit harder than anyone expected. The cameras were already rolling when the mood shifted. It was a morning political show, one of those calm, low-stakes roundtables where people usually smile, talk policy, and go home. But something about this one felt different from the start. The lights were too bright, the smiles too tight, the studio too still. Jasmine Crockett sat at the end of the panel. She wasn't there for drama. She rarely was. As a congresswoman from Texas, she'd built a reputation for being focused and prepared. Her voice didn't rise. Her words always landed where they needed to. This morning, she was there to speak about a new bill, something tied to criminal justice reform, funding for re-entry programs, reducing barriers for people getting out of prison. Important stuff. Measured. Thoughtful. Then Karoline Leavitt opened her mouth. Karoline, younger, louder, more interested in going viral than going deep, was sitting just 2 seats over. Known for her hard, conservative takes and sharp tongue, she was becoming a regular on the talk show circuit. Her clips often got shared, not because of what she said, but how she said it. This was her lane. Stir things up. Throw the punch. Make the clip. Jasmine began explaining the policy behind her bill. Calm, clear. Then Karoline cut in. Funny, she said with a grin that wasn't friendly. Someone with shady nonprofit ties wants to talk about justice now? For a split second, everything stopped. The host froze. The other panelists looked down. The silence hit harder than the words. Jasmine didn't blink. She looked straight ahead. Then, without raising her voice, she said, "That's a lie. Say it under oath." There was no shouting, no finger-pointing. Just that sentence. The kind of sentence that lands deep. The kind that doesn't need to be repeated. Behind the cameras, producers scrambled. This wasn't on the cue cards. The segment was supposed to stay friendly. But now, the energy had shifted. And before anyone could recover, the moment had already left the studio. Clips hit Twitter within minutes. 1,000 views. 10,000. 100,000. By the end of the first hour, it was everywhere. People picked sides. Some called Karoline brave. Others called her reckless. Some said Jasmine was too cold. Others said she was a master of control. The clip split the internet in half. Back in the green room, showrunners argued over what just happened. One whispered into a headset, "We're going to need legal to look at this." Meanwhile, reporters gathered near the exit. Jasmine walked out the back, quiet, straight to a waiting SUV. She didn't say a word. Inside the car, she opened her phone. No social posts, no statements, just a text. "Call Terrence. We're getting legal involved." This wasn't just TV. This wasn't commentary. This was something else, something personal, something serious. This was character assassination, broadcast live to millions, and Jasmine had no plans to let it slide. The clip didn't just trend. It exploded. By nightfall, it was all over TikTok, Instagram, X. A 10-second moment from a morning panel had become a national talking point. Jasmine's quiet call-out, "Say it under oath," was now the soundtrack of 1,000 reaction videos. But just as fast as the video spread, so did the noise around it. Some people framed it as a simple disagreement. Others called it a public smear. Conservative voices rallied behind Karoline within hours. To them, she had simply asked a question. "Are we canceling people now for telling the truth?" one influencer tweeted. "She's not rude, she's real." Hashtags like SUE, Truth Over Feelings, and SUE, Free Speech Under Fire started trending. On the other side, things looked different. Progressive leaders, civil rights advocates, and younger activists pushed back. This wasn't commentary. This was targeted character damage, a popular law professor wrote. A viral breakdown of the moment dissected the tone, the timing, the body language. Jasmine never raised her voice. Karoline, they said, raised something else, doubt dressed as truth, and sarcasm disguised as honesty. In Dallas, Jasmine watched the reaction grow from the sidelines. She wasn't tweeting. She wasn't doing interviews. She was building something stronger. Her team gathered late that night in a closed-door meeting. No phones, no press, just legal pads and decision-makers. The first priority, a legal response. Terrence, her longtime advisor, was clear. This isn't just about her words. This is about how deep they went. Reputational harm, professional damage, defamation in front of millions. They brought in Brandon Keyes, a litigation expert from San Antonio, known for being quiet in court, but deadly with facts. He didn't care about spin. He cared about record. Brandon and his team began collecting everything. The clip, the raw footage, the transcript, social media responses, and past statements Karoline had made that hinted at a pattern. The $80 million figure wasn't pulled from the sky. Jasmine's team had an outside media firm do an impact audit. They looked at her brand deals, speaking invites, donor relationships, and press coverage. The financial hit was real, but the bigger damage was trust. How the comment made her look in spaces where perception was everything. It wasn't just embarrassing. It was designed to undercut her credibility. Karoline, meanwhile, went on offense. She posted a picture of herself smiling with a caption, "If asking questions is illegal now, we've got a much bigger problem than one lawsuit." Her base ate it up. Conservative podcasts booked her. Think tanks reposted her tweets. She leaned hard into the free speech defense. "This isn't about race or gender," she said in one interview. "It's about the First Amendment." She called the lawsuit political theater, a publicity stunt. "This is how they silence strong women who don't bow down," she told one host. But behind her calm tone was pressure. Sponsors were calling. Networks were watching. Her own team had warned her, "If this goes to court, we lose control." Back in Dallas, Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't stand behind a podium. She sat in a chair, looked into a camera, and spoke straight to the people. No script, no edits, just her. Calm, clear, and completely in control. "I wasn't attacked with facts. I was targeted with something else," she said. "This wasn't free speech. This was a planned hit, meant to leave a mark." And then, almost as if the universe was working in sync, more cracks started to show. A journalist at a mid-sized digital outlet published a report the next morning. It wasn't flashy, but it hit hard. The headline was "Karoline's Moment," scripted. The article revealed her ties to the Marston Group, a behind-the-scenes consulting firm known for training political commentators in viral pivots, lines designed to land no matter the cost. Turns out the insult Karoline used on air wasn't off the cuff. It was written down, rehearsed, and approved. More details followed. Internal documents showed the Marston Group had a file on Jasmine. Notes, clips, phrases. They'd been preparing. For months, a passee, one that had spent money opposing Jasmine during her last election, was also funding content creators who pushed Karoline's clip across platforms. Same hashtags, same captions, same message. Suddenly, this wasn't just a mean moment on live TV. It was coordinated, designed, packaged. Jasmine read the article in her office. She put the paper down slowly and said, "We're not just filing for me anymore. We're setting precedent." Brandon nodded. His phone had already started ringing. Attorneys, journalists, advocacy groups. Everyone wanted in. Meanwhile, Karoline kept smiling for the cameras, but in private, her tone was changing. Her legal team started reviewing past episodes. "What else did you say that could be pulled out of context?" one asked. She replied flatly, "It's not out of context. They just don't like how I say it." That arrogance, that belief that she couldn't be touched, only pushed Jasmine's team harder. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. This wasn't random. This wasn't misunderstood. It was strategy. And it had crossed a legal line. By the end of the week, civil rights groups had issued official statements. One major nonprofit posted, "What happened to Rep. Crockett wasn't just rude. It was reckless." And it speaks to a larger culture of public disrespect targeting women of color in power. Karoline had tried to start a media war. Jasmine had started a movement, and it was just getting started. The courtroom was full before either woman even arrived. Dozens of reporters waited outside. Inside, people sat shoulder to shoulder, phones silenced, but hands twitching to live tweet every moment. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a public showdown. Jasmine walked in first. No designer sunglasses, no entourage. Just her lawyer Brandon, and a steady expression. She didn't look angry. She looked ready. She took her seat at the front, hands folded, eyes forward. 15 minutes later, Karoline entered. She wore a sharp white blazer, crisp, clean, and screaming for attention. She didn't look around, but the flash of cameras through the courthouse. Windows told her she didn't need to. This was her moment, too. She smiled once, briefly, then took her seat on the opposite side. Judge Delaney took the bench shortly after. He was known for being no-nonsense, didn't care about press, didn't play into drama. His tone was flat, his message clear. This case will not become theater. Then came the videos. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the screen lit up. Clip after clip played. The live TV segment where Karoline first made her jab, her podcast appearances afterward, the talk show where she doubled down. One moment stood out. A podcast episode where Karoline looked straight into the camera and said, "There are whispers, credible sources. People are saying Jasmine's nonprofit isn't clean." That sentence played 3 times. Each time it hit harder. Jasmine didn't react. She didn't flinch. She just sat there, eyes fixed, on the screen. Her team had seen this clip before, but in this room in front of a judge it felt different. It wasn't just words anymore, it was evidence. When the screen went dark, Brandon stood up, calm as ever. "This wasn't commentary," he said. "This was planned defamation. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. And it wasn't based on fact. It was built on spite. Our evidence will show that Karoline Leavitt knew what she was saying was false, and said it anyway." Karoline's lawyer followed. His tone was sharper, more defensive. "My client challenged a public figure. That's not a crime, that's democracy. If we start punishing questions, we silence the public. This is intimidation disguised as injury." Judge Delaney leaned forward. "If I see reckless disregard for the truth," he said, "you won't. Be shielded by the First Amendment. Know that now." The room fell quiet again. Outside the courthouse, the internet was on fire. Still Speaking began trending. Karoline's supporters pushing a message of victimhood and silencing. But it didn't dominate the way it once did. Something had shifted. Clips from Jasmine's past interviews began surfacing again. One, from months before the lawsuit, showed her calmly saying, "I'm not angry. I'm awake." That line took off like wildfire. TikTok users stitched it into their own stories, students, teachers, mothers, activists, each of them describing moments they were dismissed, interrupted, or told to shrink themselves. News outlets began rethinking their angles. Op-eds showed up with titles like, "What if Jasmine's right?" and "The difference between free speech and free slander." Karoline noticed the shift too. That night, she appeared on a late-night network interview. The lighting was soft. Her tone was sad, not sharp. She choked back emotion as she said, "I never thought asking a question would land me in court. I was doing what commentators are supposed to do." But then she went too far. Near the end of the interview, she paused, looked down, then said quietly, "There are things we're hearing about Jasmine's past finances. It's not public yet, but people are talking. No evidence, no sources, just a sentence." But it was enough to start the fire again. Jasmine's phone blew up within minutes. Her inbox was full. Texts from Brandon, Samira, reporters. Everyone saw the same clip. Everyone knew what it meant. She didn't hesitate. "File the motion to update the case," she said. "This isn't just court now. This is the whole country watching." Then she made a call of her own. She didn't want a press release. She didn't want a news anchor controlling the story. She wanted to speak directly to the people. The next night, Jasmine sat alone in front of a camera. No host, no background music, no flashy production. Just her, in a quiet room, telling the truth. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She spoke, clearly. "I've been accused. I've been called things I won't repeat. But I've stayed calm, not because I'm weak, but because I know the game. I know what it looks like when someone pokes you and waits for the reaction. But this isn't about a reaction. It's about a pattern. And I'm done letting that pattern continue without a fight." Within an hour, her live stream had over 1 million views. People weren't just watching, they were listening. The live stream wasn't promoted with big graphics or flashy teasers. It went live quietly, without countdowns or celebrity endorsements. Just Jasmine, sitting alone in a simple chair, facing the camera. No makeup crew, no press team standing by, just her voice. Steady, clear, and ready to speak without interruption. It lasted 17 minutes. She didn't start with a slogan. She didn't recap the court or the headlines. She just breathed in, looked directly into the lens, and began. This was never about silencing someone. It was about telling the truth, she said. Because when lies are repeated enough, people start to believe them, and that can undo someone's entire life's work. Her tone was quiet, almost soft, but every word hit with weight. She didn't name Karoline, not once. She didn't need to. Instead, she talked about patterns, about how public platforms can be used to hurt, not help, and how having a microphone doesn't mean you have permission to smear someone's name. "We all know the difference," she said, "between asking hard questions and crossing the line. We can't keep acting like they're the same." By the time she signed off, more than 80,000 people had watched live. But that wasn't the real impact. The real impact came after. Clips. From the stream spread across every platform, not because of drama, but because of clarity. One moment in particular stood out. "You don't need to yell to tell the truth." A pastor in Georgia posted it with a caption, "That's the Jasmine we forgot." His post was reshared thousands of times. Teachers played it in classrooms. Organizers quoted it at local meetings. College students started discussion threads around the message. Not the lawsuit, not the headline, but the message. Jasmine's words weren't part of a brand strategy. They were just real, and people could feel that. Meanwhile, the legal case moved forward quietly. There was no final verdict yet, but in the most recent hearing, Judge Delaney made one thing very clear. This court will not protect lies dressed as commentary. That one line made its way into op-eds, legal podcasts, even a Sunday talk show. People were starting to separate the noise from the harm. Commentary, they said, is not cruelty, and challenging power is not the same as trying to humiliate someone on camera. Out of that clarity, something else began to take shape. A small group of lawmakers introduced a bill, not a flashy one, but an important one. It called for stricter ethics standards for on-air political commentary, fact checks, clearer disclosures, accountability systems. It wasn't censorship. It was just structure. Support came quickly from civil rights groups, education coalitions, even media watchdogs. One headline read, "The Crockett line, where accountability begins." But Jasmine didn't celebrate. She didn't post victory tweets. She just went back to work. She held her usual town halls. She showed up at classroom visits. She ate at community dinners and shook hands at food drives. People didn't clap when she walked in. They didn't take selfies. They just said, "We see you." That meant more than applause. In one small Dallas classroom, a young girl raised her hand during Jasmine's visit and asked, "Did it hurt when they said those things about you?" Jasmine paused. Then she nodded. "Yes, but I knew what they Said wasn't who I am, so I didn't stay hurt. I got clear. That answer stuck. It was written on whiteboards the next day, and in the background Karoline's name faded from the headlines, not because she disappeared, but because the story had moved on without her. It wasn't about winning anymore. Jasmine had never treated it like a war. It was about the moment the country stopped and looked at what it had allowed, the way it let commentary slide into character attacks, the way it ignored harm if the person being harmed didn't shout. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't storm out. She just held the line and made everyone see it. The final words of the story didn't come from a judge or a press release. They came in voiceover, during a short closing message Jasmine posted 1 week later. Her voice was steady. Speak carefully. Question boldly. But never confuse cruelty for courage, not in politics, not in media, not in life. And after a short pause, if this story made you feel something, don't let it end here. Share it, talk about it, let it live. And just like that, the story became more than hers. It became ours.